That morning, in the heart of the Vatican, an event unfolded that shook the very foundations of the Catholic Church. A young man, only 27 years old, hailing from the humble town of Planaltina near Brasilia, spoke words of such power and depth that they pierced the hearts of thousands of faithful gathered in St. Peter's Basilica. Witnesses attest that even on the face of Pope Leo XIV, a man who had seen much during his years of service, tears appeared. This is not just a story about another priestly ordination. It is a tale of how God chooses simple and pure hearts to touch even the highest spheres of spiritual authority. And what followed the ceremony forever changed the understanding of priestly vocation. This account is about Lucas Suarez dos Santos, a man who seemingly was no different from thousands of other young people, yet at the same time embodied the best qualities of Brazilian youth: sincerity, unwavering faith, and boundless love for God. That Friday morning, June 27th, Lucas stood among 32 priestly candidates who had arrived from all corners of the globe, and there was something in his gaze that immediately drew attention. Not nervousness, but a deep peace mingled with a joy accessible only to those who have truly encountered God. Lucas was born in Planaltina, a town where families still know each other by name, where children play in the streets without fear, and where faith is an integral part of daily life. It was from this remote part of Brazil, from the very heart of its traditions, that this young man, destined to become a priest, emerged. The story of his calling began at 15, during adoration of the Blessed Sacrament at Our Lady of Nazareth Parish. Something profound touched his heart then. "I felt that God is truly God," he later said. "I felt His love, His mercy, and I could see how God was already present in my life, how He was calling me." In an age where many young people seek complex and unusual experiences to find God, Lucas found Him where He had always been, in the quiet of prayer, in the simplicity of an open heart, in the humility of a person realizing he needs nothing but divine love. After this experience, Lucas could have taken many different paths. He finished school, even enrolled in university, but the divine call echoed so powerfully in his heart that he could not ignore it. He then decided to enter the seminary and seriously commit to his spiritual development. The years spent in the seminary left an indelible mark on his soul. What struck me most was the fraternity and fellowship with the other seminarians, he recalled, and of course prayer, which helped me strengthen my bond with God. He saw priestly formation not as a solitary journey, but as a fraternal experience, an opportunity to live in community, draw in love for others from God. For him, prayer was not a burden, but an intimate encounter, a loving dialogue with the one who first loved him. Throughout his years of study, Lucas maintained his unassuming nature. His mentors noted that he was never a problematic seminarian, never sought to stand out or draw attention to himself. He simply lived his calling with the innate grace and spontaneity of someone who had found his place in the world. And so, in St. Peter's Basilica, surrounded by thousands of faithful, the pivotal moment arrived. During the ordination ceremony, as hands were laid upon him, something extraordinary occurred, causing hearts to pause in anticipation. When I, the author of these lines, approached Lucas to lay my hands on his head and transmit the sacred priesthood of Jesus Christ, he whispered words meant only for my ear. The raw sincerity of these words, however, evoked a deep response within my soul, bringing tears to my eyes. Holy Father, he uttered with a trembling voice. "Thank you for helping me accept the call that originated in the humble church of Planaltina. I promise to carry Brazil in my priestly heart, wherever the Lord may lead me." In that moment, it seemed all of Brazil was present in the humility and faith of this young man. In Lucas, I saw not just a newly ordained priest, but a symbol of the Brazilian church's vitality, its ability to cultivate holy, sincere vocations deeply rooted in the gospel. After the ceremony, in a brief conversation in the sacristy, Lucas spoke words that seemed prophetic to me. Being ordained by the Pope in a Jubilee year, which occurs once every 25 years, is an indescribable opportunity. I am infinitely grateful to God, who manifests His boundless love through these signs. These words attest to a spiritual maturity remarkable for such a young age. Lucas understands that his ordination is not merely a personal event, but a divine testament for the entire church. He sees his calling in the context of the great history of salvation, in the rhythm of jubilees, in the dynamic of divine grace that never ceases to surprise, and his emotion is entirely justified. Ordination to the priesthood in a Jubilee year by the hands of the Pope in St. Peter's Basilica is truly a tangible manifestation of the Lord's boundless love. However, what is most striking about Lucas is that he perceives this not as a privilege that elevates him above others, but as a profound responsibility that binds him even more to service. In this intense and joyful moment, when I was privileged to be so intimately connected to the Church in the person of the Pope, I realized that Lucas had grasped something fundamental. The priesthood does not distance one from God's people. On the contrary, it binds one even more intimately to them. Ordination by the Pope does not make him special, but rather a servant. My beloved sons and daughters of Brazil, I want you to know, in ordaining Lucas Soares dos Santos, I am ordaining a part of Brazil itself. In his consecrated hands are now enshrined the industrious hands of the Brazilian people. In his heart, now priestly, beats the generous heart of the Brazilian land. In his voice, which will proclaim the gospel, resonate the joy and hope inherent to the Brazilian people. Lucas will return to Brazil, carrying not only his priestly ordination, but also a special blessing for the entire Brazilian church. Through him, I want to appeal to every Brazilian family. Continue to foster vocations, raise your children in faith, remain the cradle of saints and missionaries that you have always been. To every young Brazilian who feels a divine call in their heart, I appeal, look at Lucas. See how a simple young man from Planaltina, raised in the humble faith of a parish in the interior, was able to achieve this. Not through personal merit or exceptional circumstances, but solely because he answered yes to God's call. To every Brazilian father and mother, I say, do not be afraid if the Lord calls your children to the priesthood or religious life. What may seem like a loss is, in fact, the greatest gift you can offer to the church and the world. Lucas is now not only the son of his biological parents, but also a spiritual son to me and the entire church. Now Lucas returns to Brazil as Father Lucas. He will bring back to his homeland not only the sacred oil, but also the tears of joy I shed on the day of his ordination. He will bring not only his priestly vestments, but also the memory of the Pope, touched by the genuine simplicity of his faith. I am confident that he will be a priest after Christ's own heart, not because he is perfect, none of us are perfect, but because he possesses a quality that Jesus values above all else, a pure and simple heart. capable of boundless love. His first masses will be celebrated on Brazilian soil, but spiritually, I will be present at each of them. When he first raises the consecrated host, it will seem to me that I too am raising with him the bread that has become Christ. When he pronounces the words of consecration, I am sure my voice will echo with his. I ask all Brazilians to embrace Father Lucas with the same love with which they welcome their children returning home. He is no longer just Lucas from Planaltina. He is Lucas of Brazil, Lucas of the Universal Church, Lucas of Christ. In conclusion, I wish to impart a special blessing, not only for Lucas, but also for all Brazilian families who, like his family, raise their children in faith and are ready to dedicate them to God's service when he calls. May the Lord continue to bless Brazil with holy vocations. May Our Lady of Aparecida, the patroness of Brazil, continue to intercede so that from Brazilian soil may spring forth many other Lucases ready to answer yes to the divine call. And may the example of this young priest inspire other young Brazilians not to fear following God's voice, even if it leads them along paths that seem difficult or unusual. Today, a momentous occasion took place. A portion of Brazilian soil attained sacred orders through a rite performed by Pope Leo XIII. Who knows, perhaps tomorrow, the walls of St. Peter's Basilica will again witness a similar sacrament, as yet another young Brazilian receives ordination. For Brazil is fertile ground for vocations, a cradle of saints, and the homeland of tireless missionaries. Lucas Soares dos Santos, henceforth Father Lucas, carries with him the Pope's apostolic blessing for the entire Archdiocese of Brasilia, for all of Brazil, for every Brazilian family that cherishes the dream of their son or daughter, dedicating themselves to the Lord's service. May God's blessing rest upon Brazil. May it envelop Father Lucas, and may the Almighty grant us all the simplicity and purity of heart possessed by this young man, who once again reminded the pontiff how truly wonderful it is to be a priest of Jesus Christ. With paternal love and pride, Pope Leo XIII calls upon all to offer prayers for the newly ordained Father Lucas, and not to forget to pray for him too, that he may continue to be a shepherd guided by Christ's heart